So welcome. This is our new venue. So thank you for finding it and actually showing up. So how did we end up here? So Florence was complaining that she wanted food and drink, and our last place was at like an office, so it was boring and had no atmosphere. But so that's why we're encouraging you to. So okay, let me preface this. So this place is managed by the same guy who manages Queen and Beaver at Young and Elm. So I knew that place because it's the place that got me really into beer. They had Innocent Gun on draft there. It was amazing. Their hand chopped burger was amazing. So when Cecily found this place for us, yay Cecily! When Cecily found this place for us, I walked in, I talked to the manager, and he's like, yeah, so I managed Queen Beaver. And so I was like, this place is going to be awesome. Beer is awesome, the food's awesome. So please, it's a new place. They do events here. Please patronize the place too. Grab a drink, grab some food, right? So maybe I should introduce ourselves. Okay, who's Volition? So my name's Matt. This is Ming. So Volition is a full-service boutique real estate investment firm. So we provide all the real estate services you need under one umbrella in order for you to be successful. So we are not a REIT. We get that question a lot. Are you a REIT? No, we're not a REIT. Our focus isn't on trying to build this thing and buy into shares. It's not a REIT. Our focus is on you. Our focus is on helping you be successful. Our focus is on you having everything you need in order to achieve your goals, right? So, the alternative, first of all, there's actually nothing like Volition. We're filling a niche in this marketplace. The niche that we're actually, can you start recording? Audio recording?
Oh, sure.
Here, you can do it online. So, Volition is trying to fill a niche in the marketplace. So think about this, right? You want to invest in some real estate. So what do? You call up a realtor, you call up a buddy who's a realtor, you call up your grandma who's a realtor. There's 50,000 agents in Toronto, so chances are you're related to a few. So what do? You call up one of those guys, right? They're like, I want to buy a condo. And they'll be like, okay, great. So we'll help you buy a condo. We don't do that at Volition. We'll take a step back. We'll figure out a couple of things. We want to figure out where you're at right now, where you want to go, and then we'll help you build a plan to get there. Right? It's a very different approach. So, at the end of the day, what you might be investing in is a condo, maybe, but how would you know that that's the right option for you unless you've gone through all the steps, right? Unless you've determined what it is that you want to ultimately achieve through the context of real estate and using real estate as a transformative vehicle to get there. How could you possibly say, so one conversation I was having with someone, sorry I forgot your name, but it was like, I want cash flow. I'll go anywhere there's cash flow. It's a very common question, right? But unless we've had a chance to sit down and actually go over what it is you're ultimately trying to achieve, people don't want cash flow. People don't want 10 properties. People don't want $1 million in the bank account. What they want, actually, is the type of lifestyle that financial security can provide, right? They're very, very different things. The reason I'm getting into that is because it's very easy to say, okay, well, I'm going to invest in wherever, right? Quite often we get, invest in like Windsor or something like that, or some fuck in the workplace, right? The problem is, you invest in a place like that, you're opening yourself up to different things, different risks. So take a look. As you check in, you might have got
there's 2 drinks. Is anybody there?
This is our white paper that we
can see
created in order to.
Okay, well, we'll take these 2.
Okay. Anyway, who are we?
So basically our business is broken up into 4 areas. And the reason it's like this is because we came together out of need ourselves. So if you guys have ever heard of something called a BRRRR investment method, does that ring a bell to anybody? So BRRRR is basically buy, renovate, refinance, and this
Repeat.
rent.
Rent, repeat.
So anyway, we needed to execute on this ourselves. So that's how we all actually came together to work. So we started off in kind of the advisory, learning how to do the real estate investments, acquisitions of the property, which sits under our realty division. Turning those properties into rentable units is where the renovations division comes in, and then managing those properties after they've been renovated. So it actually kind of follows that BRRRR method.
The key differentiator is this. Damn it! Come on.
Is this.
Is this. This was supposed to be impressive. That kind of fell flat on its face. Our key differentiator is going to be around our advisory practice. This is really, like I said before, you can go work with an agent and they'll help you go buy a property. Buying a property is not a very hard thing, right? You go out, you got the money, go apply for a mortgage, you go buy a property. Trying to ensure that you're getting the right property that's fitting within the context of your goals, what you're trying to achieve, that's the hard part, right? So we have an advisory practice that actually helps you. It's centered around coaching, mentorship, education. Yeah? Volume. Speak louder?
Yes.
We got it. So maybe I'll present from here then. So our advisory practice is really focused around education, it's focused around mentorship, around coaching, and these meetups. This is part of it, right? You're gonna learn from each other, you're gonna learn from your peers, you're gonna learn from other people who've done it. We're trying to create that community and we're trying to create that support so that you're not just this lone ranger who's going to go buy a property and hope it does well. It's going to be part of an overall strategy. It's going to be part of an overall approach, right? So that's really what differentiates us, and the fact that we also have all the services under one umbrella. Like Ning said, we can help you. We'll set forth the strategy with you in the advisory phase. We'll help you execute on that in the realty stage. If it requires renovations, we have design and renovation services. We can actually help you create those rent-ready apartments, and then we have the leasing property management. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this is what we're trying to be for you. We're trying to be that eraser, right? We want to kind of blaze that trail for you. We've gone through it before. We've done it ourselves. And we want to make this as seamless of an approach as possible for you. And ultimately, so I mean, who are we though? Right? We could just be a bunch of hacks. You don't know me from anyone else. So anyway, I usually skip over this slide, but Chris Law was like, you know what, you guys need to actually talk about what you guys have done. So I'm going to talk about it because in previous meetups I just glossed right over this. So I'm actually going to talk about this. I didn't want to talk about it because I feel like have you ever seen those billboards where everyone's like, oh, you're #1 realtor in downtown? Like, what the hell does that even mean? If you look at the fine print, you'll actually realize it's not them, it's, their brokerage was like the #1 brokerage or something stupid like that. So anyway, I'll talk about it. I don't really want to. We are certified real estate investment advisors through RAIN, through Real Estate Investment Network. So, if that means anything to you, we're educated and trained in the RAIN approach of investing in real estate, right? So cash flow is important, the demographics is important, the location is important, transit, all that stuff, gentrification. So, we've been educated by the right organizations. RAIN, by the way, is one of the largest real estate organizations in Canada. We're the Toronto exclusive investment realtor team for the RAIN Buyers Group. So they selected us to represent their clients, their interest in Toronto. We were nominated for RAIN's highest award last year, which was the Michael Milner Leadership Award. It's some stuff about the more you give, the more you get back. Other stuff. There's a bunch of other awards like top realtor or whatever. This one meant the most to us though. This one actually meant that we took an interest in helping others in the investment community. So we were nominated for that last year. And then there's a bunch of other awards. We've got silver investment award, bronze investment award through RAIN. We won a bunch of other realtor awards, Chairman's Club, top President's Club, top producer. There's a bunch of other stuff too.
It actually says blah 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 here.
Yeah, it actually says blah 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 there. And lastly, like I said, we've done this, right? We walk our talk. We have $25 million plus holdings in investment real estate in over 50 doors. So, you know, we've been through it. This is why we feel like we have some capacity to be able to help you. Fair enough? Cool.
I am going to go a little quickly through this. I just want to let people know that we do normal stuff too. Because for a long time people thought we only did investment properties. We also do regular helping you find a home for your personal residence. And the reason this is really important, especially if you have an investor mindset, is your personal residence can be one of the most powerful tools in leveraging yourself for your investments. Maybe it's lines of credit, maybe it's a duplex you're living in, maybe it's a triplex type of property, and we have many folks in the room who have executed on those kind of strategies here.
Can you guys hear Megan in the back?
Quiet? Quiet.
Just go to the middle of the room.
Sure. No, I'll talk louder. This is just a quick reminder for those of you in the room who are our clients already. If you're missing off the Volition Mastermind, please come speak with me afterwards. I'll make sure that you're added on there. It's just a private group for all our clients. Ask questions. It's a bit of a support community for them because things are always going wrong and you need help. So
this is a little bit of a value add for our clients. It's a bunch of people in this room are on it, and I think it's pretty useful for those people, right? Yeah? Yeah, thanks. If you'd said anything but yes, I would be very
We've also started launching another monthly meetup that is 2 weeks separate from this. It's very informal, just webinar type style. Call in, ask any questions, we talk about them, just to give you guys a little more access to us, because I know it's such a big room, there's a lot of people here. You may not get a chance afterwards to ask your specific questions. This is another forum that you can do that.
The other thing is that while we have a topic every month at a meetup, you know, tax and accounting or financing or whatever, right? This is more of a free-flowing format. The reason this was born out of the fact that I get pummeled with questions from people all the time. And you know, these one-on-one conversations, I felt like they would be very, very valuable for lots of people to listen. Hey, ask me this question, and we're gonna have 20 other people listening in, and maybe they can learn something from that. That's really what this is. I sit down a lot with one-on-one with clients. I used to when I ran the advisor practice. I used to sit down a lot with clients, and they would ask you these questions. I would ask the same questions over and over again. This is just a format so that lots of people, it emulates literally sitting down having a coffee with someone, right? So just kind of a one-to-many, and the fact that the way we designed it, log on, it's online, and it's during your lunch hour. So should be pretty easy. Last time we had like 30 people log in, 20 people actually stuck around, and we had some good feedback. I think most people rated it an 8 out of 10. Oh, sorry, 8 to 10 out of 10. So most people, it was pretty good. Pretty good ratings.
All right, and just a thank you to the venue. Thank you to the ladies at the back running the bar. This is our first time here. Please grab yourself a drink or something to eat. Support a local business.
Thank you to Cecily. Yay for helping us find it. That's it. Come on. Thank you. No, literally, it was a pain in the ass to find a place. And it was a pain in the ass to find a place that could accommodate this many people too. But yes, part of the deal is for us to use this place is for you to actually patronize the place, get some food, get some drinks. It's part of the deal we have with them. So please buy something.
Okay, so I'm going to dive into, so those of you who are new here, every month I kind of talk about what's happening in the market. I've changed the format this time, so love some feedback on this new format. So if you've been listening to a lot of the headlines in the news recently, you're probably seeing a lot of doom and gloom headlines. My favorite doom and gloom website is Better Dwelling. I don't know if you guys ever read anything on Better Dwelling, but they never have a positive headline. And it immediately makes me wonder why. I feel like somebody at Better Dwelling is maybe shorting REITs or something, but everything is negative here. So Canadian real estate sales, worst February since the Great Recession. Mortgage holders paying 27% more. Like everything here is, they're all bad. Debts hit all-time high with developers. So we know as sophisticated investors, when we see headlines like this, first thing, we don't just read the headline, right? We actually read the article, right? Because we just don't read headlines, we read the article, and then we look at the data that's supporting some of this. So that's what we did here. Jump into one of these. Canadian real estate prices go negative for the first time since 2009. That's the headline. And this is the data. It's a 0.13% decline. Not to say that we're not seeing a trend overall, oh, there's that cut off here, but there is a trend down for the overall Canadian market. But this massive headline is built off a very small data point. So that headline got me to click it, and that's how they got paid, because an ad got displayed, right? So just be aware of sensationalized headlines. What we like to do is now see if there's the converse, right? Same time period, talking about this past month, you're seeing positive headlines. So sales volumes, right? Sales decline as price growth continues. So, okay, positive on the price side, maybe down on the sales volumes. Let's dive into that as well. Okay. So it says here, decline in the GTA resale housing market in February. Okay, not a data point, but maybe I can take this now to further do a little bit more research. Maybe I can look to see where they're getting that information from. Next thing here, it says both MLS home price and MLS home price index composite benchmark. So everybody familiar with the home price index here? I've talked about it in the past for those that have been in this room. Okay, so the difference between an average home selling price and the home price index. So average home selling price is, let's say there's a lot of activity in the market, but all that activity is at the high end. Nothing but mansions are selling this past month. That's going to drive your average price up, right? Versus if there's lots of activity at the bottom end, that's going to drive the average selling price down, right? Make sense to everybody in the room? So does the average really tell us what's happened to your house, to your 2-bedroom, to your duplex? It doesn't, right? It's just telling you what's happening on average in the market. What the home price index does, it's a much better indicator. So when you're looking at headlines, look for things that are quoting the home price index, because what it does is it tracks like-for-like sales of a particular style of property as that property changes hands. So what I mean is, let's say you have a 4-bedroom home. We're going to look this month at what happens to a 4-bedroom home. The home price index then looks at the next month. What's happening with 4-bedroom detached homes with 35, 40-foot lots? Like, they're looking at like-for-like properties and tracking the value of like-for-like properties. So it's a much more accurate indicator of what's actually happening in the market with your particular type of property. So it says here, both indexes, both the average as well as the home price index, have gone up in value, rising 2.4 and 1.6 respectively. Okay, so we're seeing two different headlines. Worst time since the recession in Canada, and sales prices going up. What do we believe, right? So the first thing that jumps out to me is that one is a local report and one's a Canada-wide report. How much real estate is Canada-wide? When you're investing, are you investing in Canada or are you investing in your local market? You're investing in your local market, right? And we know as Torontonians, I'm assuming many of you here are Torontonians, we know there's a big difference in local markets. We know there's a difference between buying in Moss Park versus Regent Park versus High Park. They're all parks. But if you don't know the difference, you're in trouble, right? So let's dive a little deeper. What's happening exactly in the Toronto market? So we'll do our own research, all local real estate here. So this is corroborating some of what we heard before. You know, sales volumes, they are lower, right? We're not talking about, this is in comparison to 2016, 2017 when we had, you know, some record years here, but it is consistent with what we saw last year. So sales volumes are down. But we also see listings. Listings are also very low. Okay, maybe that's part of the reason. Maybe we're seeing poor volumes because of lack of supply. How does this compare long-term? Let's look a little more long-term. So when we look at the long-term sales trends, we see ourselves kind of comparable with what, the 08, 09 years, right? So sales volumes are down. So I think I have enough information now, and if you were an investor, you could probably say, okay, that headline about slower sales, that's correct. But let's look at pricing. Let's look at the long-term pricing trends. This is what we're seeing in long-term pricing trends. So maybe anything I'm reading about doom and gloom in pricing is not entirely accurate. Is that it? That's a super short mic. I just stand right here, guys. Okay.
Much better.
So this is what we're seeing in the price trend, right? We'll look also at the affordability index to see if there's any sort of correlation. It looks like houses getting a little bit cheaper, but even this is from Trev, which is still that overall picture of what's happening in Toronto. And it may make sense for us to continue to dive deeper and to understand further the data. And that's what we do. So when we started approaching ourselves as investors, we knew the data wasn't good enough for us to make intelligent investment decisions that as it was sitting out there. So one of the big things we did was grab all that information, punch it in ourselves, and started looking at it neighborhood by neighborhood basis. So looking at the downtown core, specifically these neighborhoods, we grabbed all the home price index information from these neighborhoods and started tracking it on a month-by-month basis. And this is what we actually saw. So we saw strength in the downtown areas. So we're seeing here, you know, there's the dip that we kind of expected, you know, through 2017. But prices have actually recovered in a lot of these areas. So this is kind of the downtown core, single-family detached here. And then we compared that to everywhere else. And when we look everywhere else, these are kind of the neighborhoods. This is what's bringing down the overall averages. This is what's bringing down the home price index, is the areas outside of the downtown core. Now the headlines are starting to make a little more sense. Now the discrepancy in data is starting to make a little more sense. When we look at the condo market, we know there's lots of activity happening in the condo market. High activity and lots of price increases happening at the bottom of the market can actually bring down that average, right? We talked about that earlier. But this is to show that we're seeing that strong growth happening in that entry-level area of the market. So typically on the news side, I dive into kind of what we're seeing in the news. I think we're going to hear a bit about it from Peter today, what's been happening. What I want to talk about is actually some developments that are kind of interesting that are happening in the GTA. Who here knows about laneway housing? Does everyone know what a laneway house is? So at the back of many properties in Toronto, you have garages that are accessed through a laneway. What's happening in Toronto is there's been changes in the rules behind laneway housing that allows you to redevelop that garage and turn it into a standalone unit. So the idea would be you have a garage at the bottom where you'd still continue to park the car, and then a second story or maybe even a third story above that people would live there. And so the idea is to, they call it gentle densification of the single-family neighborhoods that exist right now in Toronto. We had somebody come in September from MHBC, which is a city planning, which is a private planning company, to talk about laneways. But what's happening right now in Toronto is we're actually starting to see the effects of this changes in legislation. So what happened was, before to create a laneway house, you had to go through a lot of major steps. The big one having to go to something called Committee of Adjustments. Everybody here know what the Committee of Adjustments is? So anytime you're making a change to a house that is beyond the current rules, the bylaws of the area, you have to apply for an exception. And for that to happen in the city of Toronto, depending on the area, that can be a very long wait. You can be waiting 6, 8 months, you could be spending thousands of dollars, and you still may get nowhere. Matt has had a personal nightmare with the Committee of Adjustments for a home he's building. I have had very different experiences, but the length is always there. It always takes a long time. So what they've done is eliminate, they were very prescriptive on the kind of house that you could put in your laneway. They've eliminated the need to go to Committee of Adjustments and allowed that to go through the traditional permitting process. So instead of a 6 to 8 month wait and thousands of dollars paying planners to represent you and lawyers, you could actually just go through construction to permit phase. So you're down to like 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks instead. So this is a huge change for the city of Toronto. So we're already seeing the effects. 78 sites are currently in the pipeline in the city, and we expect that number to grow. I'm personally working on a renovation right now with the hopes of when that's complete, I'll be building a laneway house there as well. And I know a couple of our clients are also working towards putting laneway homes on their properties.
So we actually have that meetup recorded, and it's posted on our website. So if you want to learn more about laneway housing, you can actually go and watch it.
Yeah, and cool. it was a great talk. MHBC is one of the best firms when it comes to city planning, and so we had one of their top guys come in and talk to us about laneway housing. Okay.
You feel quicker.
Yes, sir. Another development here, Maggie's development. This is how far. I wanted to put this here because when we look at investments, I'd say 95% of what we look at doesn't qualify. It doesn't qualify for our fundamentals. So when we talk about fundamentals, we're talking about transit, we're talking about location to jobs, we're talking about neighborhoods going through gentrification. But every now and then something pops up on the radar that looks interesting. We don't know pricing yet, and that's a big one. But this does meet a lot of our initial investment criteria. This is at least 7 to 8 years out. But when we're looking as investment realtors, that's the time horizon we're looking at. And the other one that's really interesting is the changes to Yorkdale Mall. Have you guys heard about this? So basically all that giant parking lot, open ground parking lots that they have around Yorkdale Mall, they're looking at changing all of that to mix commercial, residential buildings there. This doesn't exactly fit our current day requirements for our investments. But because we're looking, this is probably more like a 10-year plus project. We're starting to evaluate this to see if it does in the future meet our requirements. Like this?
Oh, yeah. Actually, just to go back quickly. So we've actually identified other ones as well. We've talked about them in the past. Those areas are places like East Harbor. Those places are like Quayside, right? Quayside, like Google Smart City. So yeah, we're, like Megan said, we're looking pretty far in the future. Investment retrospective. So
Yeah, don't worry.
a few of you might actually know this house. We took a tour of this house during our Street Smart tour a couple of years ago. Was it about a year ago? Year and a half ago? 2 years ago? We actually went through this house. This was a client of ours who shall remain nameless.
I've been named, hey.
Anyway, so just to give you an idea of what's been happening, or what's been happening with an example type property that we have our clients buy. So oops.
Ruin the surprise.
I was gonna have you guess. We're running out of time. I'm just gonna tell you. Okay, she bought it for he, maybe.
It's okay, Matt.
She bought it for 1.2 million. She spends about $175,000 in reno, and roughly speaking, I know this isn't your exact numbers, but roughly $6,000 in the rent through the expenses. Okay, expenses of $900, mortgage of about $4,000. This would be about $1,000 of cash flow. We got this. But we worked together on this. Got this appraised again just last month. Last month. Appraisal comes in at 1.6. This is, look at when she bought this. This arguably is approaching the peak of the real estate market, which we can all sort of agree upon that is maybe around May 2017, right? Solid investment though, right? So fast forward 2 years, even though it peaked in May 2017, dropped about 7 to 10% through September 2017, and slowly came back up to par. In fact, gone past par now, right? So if you actually track the home price index and match this property against it, this far exceeded, the performance of this property exceeded the home price index. That's just a testament to how good this property was though. And so now you do a refi.
There you go.
Right? Equity takeout. So we're still working through some numbers, but this potentially has an equity takeout of roughly $320,000, and even after taking out the new mortgage, still cash flow positive. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I want to give you a sense of what our clients have purchased in the past. And Florence,
thanks, dude.
she who shall remain nameless, gets an A+ on the work that she put forth in the appraisal. So, do we just leave it to chance when you get an appraisal? No, we don't. Right? As sophisticated investors, what we do our homework. We try to make it as damn easy as possible for that lazy ass appraiser by doing all the homework for them. What we've done is we put together a feature sheet. We demonstrate to the appraiser the type of improvements, the type of features this property has. What that does is that makes it very easy then for the appraiser to compare this property to the comparable properties that we hand to him on a silver platter, right? So he does a walkthrough of the property, we give him a feature sheet, and now he gets a sense of the type of property it is and the level of the property. And now we hand him other comparables to say, these ones are comparable to the one you're standing in right now. That's what these comps are. In fact, to make it even easier for him, we put together a summary table which actually demonstrates the features of these comparable properties. What?
No,
I don't like this mic. It makes it even easier for the appraiser. So we look at things like, number of units, lot size, whether it's detached or semi, right? So then we can easily demonstrate to the appraiser, hey, we're making your job really, really easy for you. Just give us this value that we're telling you. And we don't always get it. If we've got a really diligent appraiser, he's going to throw this entire package into the garbage. But most people are lazy, and if you can make their job as easy as possible, at least you possibly have influence over that process. This is what's led, we requested a valuation of 1.7. We got a valuation of 1.6. Is there anything you want to add?
Just a bite. Sorry, I do. In 30 seconds. Say something for 30 seconds.
Okay, so I'll say something for 30 seconds, we'll come back. This is one of our secret weapons. We have an investment calculator that does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Go up on our website, click on investment calculator, punch in your numbers, and this will very easily help you analyze a property. So I just want to throw this out there because a lot of clients of ours don't know that this exists. Okay, going back.
Okay, so to swallow my food, I want to say that this is not easy. I think this is a lot of work. And one thing I would add is, if you do due diligence, you can get this kind of thing done. But it was with the help of Matt's team. So he said we a lot. But it's like, Matt, give me your templates. What did it look like? And then I made it look a lot better.
It's true.
It's true. Come on, that's like a work of art. But as an example of the hustle, it's like literally I went and printed it at a freaking print shop at 8 a.m. Picked it up, and then it was like $5 for 2 feature sheets. I'm like, here, appraiser, 2 feature sheets. I clearly have got my shit together because it's on cardstock.
And full color, full bleed.
Full color. Because Matt's like, just do black and white. I'm like, no, that's bullshit. Like, I did all this the night before. And our target was 1.6, so we did 1.7, and we knew who the appraiser was, so we thought, how are we going to, like, make him do 1.6? Well, part of it with the spreadsheet was pointing out where I was like humble. So I was like, you know what, these properties at 1.82 million were really high. I recognize where there's shortfalls, so that's why my valuation's lower, and that seemed to have gone well. Rather than like, hey, firm on this being 1.6, and we would have started down from that. So yeah.
We knew this appraiser. We knew who he was. He actually had done my property a few weeks prior. Right? I went through the exact same process.
Yeah, Chris's.
Oh, we did Chris's as well?
Same guy.
He gave you a really good valuation.
But that's when you had to push, because that was like, it was a lot of...
Yeah, he gave Chris a really good valuation, but this takes work, right? But this is the difference between average consumer level investor who operates at this level and the level that we operate, right? Who goes through this type of work? Very, 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 very few people. But we do, and that's why we get the valuations we're looking for, right? I recently, just as another anecdote, so I had a place appraised 2 years ago for 1.5, and then I got that same property appraised this year, just last month, for 2. The market hasn't moved that much, right? So, but the type of work, and we were able to influence, he was a really good appraiser actually. He was very diligent, but he listened to us as well. He was very reasonable. And, yeah, sorry, question.
I had a quick question related to the appraisal price. So is this separate from the MPAC assessment?
This has nothing to do with MPAC.
And so is this related to the refi then?
This is only for refi.
Like the main purpose is to have a higher appraisal so that we get a higher refi.
The purpose of this is, so basically I buy a property, let's just say, I buy a property for $1 million, right? And I've seen a bunch of places sell around me for 1.3. If mine was comparable to those in terms of the features, that was attached, mine's detached. It had 4 bedrooms, mine had 4 bedrooms. It had 3 bathrooms, mine had 3 bathrooms. It's renovated, mine's renovated. There's a good argument to be made that mine's probably somewhere in that ballpark, right? Now, and this, again, this is the difference between like regular folks and sophisticated investors. A lot of people would go, okay, that's just a paper gain, right? This is just a paper gain. What can I actually do with it? Actually, there's a lot you can do with it. This is what we do. This is how we grow our portfolios. This is how the Volition team has grown our portfolios to, 50 doors and portfolio value of whatever, right? This is the exact approach. We do an equity takeout, meaning we refinance our mortgage, either as a new mortgage, or we do a blend of the old mortgage and new mortgage, or we do a HELOC. Lots of different ways, right? It doesn't matter. The point is, we do that equity takeout, and then we use it to roll forward. So however much this equity takeout is, $320,000 or whatever it is, that's now a viable amount to be able to, as a down payment closing cost for my next investment. Cool?
I think there was a question.
Oh, question? Here.
Sounds like you did a really great job here.
She did this one. Mine looked a lot worse than this.
Just a couple of questions. What was the age of the building in your example, the triplex?
What was it? How old's your triplex?
83, 84 years old.
So
it's a downtown.
1940.
It's actually only a couple streets over. It's in Little Italy.
And the second question, the last question is about the expenses. You estimated it to be 900 out of right 900 expenses, and the rent was about 6,000.
So the expenses include taxes, insurance, gas, hydro, water.
repair and maintenance, you're not including.
We have, there's different ways people do it. Sometimes they include it as an expense, but then they add back vacancy and repairs and maintenance. They add it back afterward. This is, the cash flow here is, I mean, you've been around long enough, you know the RAIN method. We take a slightly different approach because we take that cash flow, we don't live off that cash flow, we don't touch it. That goes into a bank account, which increases over time and becomes our rainy day fund, which actually goes to repairs and maintenance, any vacancy we might have, so on and so forth. We take a slightly different approach than the exact RAIN approach.
I think another thing to point out is it was recently renovated, so a lot of changes were made. Basement, major work in the basement, so a lot of those repairs and maintenance are front loaded.
But you know, your point's well taken.
Yeah.
On a newer place, we would do about a 5% on repair and maintenance on gross rents. If it's an older place, maybe about a 10% on gross rents. Yeah.
Hey Matt, just curious. In terms of the appraisal, is this something that you do sort of like privately, and then you go to a lender appraiser, or you actually engage a third-party appraiser, and then do this appraisal work and then submit that to the lender?
Very good question. Very good question. What we do, so we work, our strategic partner who fills the one gap that we don't, with the service that we don't offer, we don't do financing within the Volition team. We do pretty much everything else, we don't do financing.
Why don't we do financing?
Because it's a pain in the ass. The mortgage rules change literally on a freaking weekly basis. We can only be experts in one thing. Funny enough, Sam and I are actually mortgage brokers, but we just don't practice. I'm going to answer your question now, though. So we work very closely with David Gonzalez, Chris, and Hugo at the Vine team. What those guys do is they will actually sit down with you. They'll take a view on your portfolio, trying to figure out what your goals are, and then look at your property or your sample type of acquisition. And then what they'll do is they'll determine which lenders they think that you're going to go to. They create a list of like 7 or 8 lenders, for example. Then they will look at the approved lenders, approved appraisers for those lenders, right? So then what will happen is they will then call that appraiser, they will book that appointment, and then once they book that appointment, we meet them on site, we'll go through, we'll do all of this stuff, we'll hand them everything. Then what we'll do is, even before they officially release the report, we have not influence, but we can have a conversation before the report gets finalized.
Got it.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, in Chris's case, the original valuation that came in was 1.3, but then after some negotiation, we were able to get that up to 1.35, right? So there's leeway there, but it's a more strategic approach rather than, hey, call out an appraiser and let the cards fall within it.
Got it. Thanks,
Matt. Good question, Will. Why work with an investment realtor? Sorry, I'm running short of time, but I want to go through this quickly. This is a mini case study of something that happened recently. Okay, so here's the scenario. You go to buy a property, right? You get home inspection done, and there's deficiencies. What do? I'm the boss. You're my client. I'm taking you out buying this investment property. There are deficiencies on the home inspection report after we do home inspection. What do? Has no one bought a property before? I see lots of people here who have properties. I know you do.
You discount the price.
You discount the price, right?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Wrong. No, not wrong. There are ways to do it in more intelligent ways, more strategic ways. You can do a price reduction. Yes. So basically, hey, I bought this place for $1 million, and my down payment's going to be $200,000, right? I go to get a home inspection report, XYZ is wrong, I negotiate $5,000 off, right? There's 2 ways you can do it. 99.999% of the realtors out there will do it one way, because that's the only damn way they know how. They're going to do a price reduction, right? Not saying that we won't do it that way, but there is another way as well that you should think about exploring. It's an abatement on your Schedule A. So your Schedule A is your schedule with all the additional terms on top of your purchase agreement, right? If you put the right language in there, saying the seller agrees to rebate or agrees to an abatement to the to be paid to the buyer upon closing on to be reflected on the statement of adjustments of $5,000. There's a possibility. Not saying it's 100%. There's a possibility that the lender may overlook this. Why is that important? Why is that important?
It
effectively lowers your down payment. That $5,000, if that's credited to me upon closing on my statement of adjustments, my down payment is no longer $200,000. It could be $195,000, right? I've lowered my down payment. I've leveraged further. I've strategically worked around these rules that are in place, right? Not saying that this will happen every single time. Some lenders will look at this and go, okay, well, this is effectively a price reduction. I'm going to reduce the mortgage accordingly. Some may overlook it. Some may look at it and go, hey, I see that the language on Schedule A was specifically the money that's going to be credited back to the buyer is going to fix these deficiencies directly. So therefore, I see it as a credit to them, not a price reduction. And they may just leave it, right? So there's two ways to do it. So why am I highlighting this? I'm highlighting this because you should be working with an investment-focused realtor. That's why. No, very, very, very few other realtors, normal realtors who help you buy a condo or a house or whatever, are going to know about this. We know about this because we know how lending works, right? Okay, really quickly, what are the trends this year? I mentioned this last month. We see assignments as being a trend this year. Why? Typically, in Toronto, there are 15,000 units that come online every year due to pre-construction. That means a whole bunch of them sold 4 or 5 years ago, pre-construction, right? Now they're all coming online. This year, even though we're normally set at about 15,000, we're expecting 25,000 units to come online every year. That actually means that there's going to be a bunch of people who weren't planning to close, and we're just going to assign anyway. Some people, because the mortgage rules have changed, they can't close, don't want to close because if they come up with a whole bunch of more money, it's a pain in the ass for them. There's a whole bunch of people who are going to be very, very happy walking away with $150,000 of profit without any hassle. Plus, that's it. Sign a few pieces of paper, sign to someone else. You're that buyer who comes in. Why is this important to you? You can actually get this at very, very good pricing. If it's good pricing, that could be the difference between a cash flow negative and a cash flow positive property. So now, you could be looking at a condo. For example, we have one we have a client right now. He's assigning. He's exactly in this boat. He's very happy to walk away with $150,000 or $170,000 of profit. He knows that if he closed and sold it later, he would sell for much more. But that's a lot of hassle. He doesn't want to do that. He's going to sell it at discount pricing right now. This is at Queen Bathurst, Queen West, awesome builder. The rent that you're going to be able to get on this makes this cash flow neutral on a brand new condo. That's impossible. You'll never find that on resale. You'll never find that. Everything is about cash flow negative $200 to $400. So assignments. We see assignments as a trend this year, and we see Volition's. We're working towards becoming the marketplace for these type of assignment deals because not only do we have the people who are trying to get out, who bought a couple years ago, we have people who are trying to buy in, who are looking for cash flow deals that can't find them. So if this is of interest to you, let us know. We'll have a chat. Triplexes again. We have a whole bunch of clients who are starting to buy freehold triplexes again, which is crazy because last year we said no one could qualify. No one could qualify last year. We have some theories as to why, but what we're starting to see is the next point. Big refis and big appraisals. So a lot of our clients are getting equity takeouts and then they're using those previous properties as stepping stones towards new ones. So they are buying these triplexes again. Even though last year it wasn't really conducive to them because they hadn't built up enough equity in their previous properties. Now they have. Cool? Yep.
I was going to say, I think further to that is that this year all the pre-construction prices are at an extraordinarily high price point. People are listing new units at $1,500 a square feet to $2,000 a square feet. It doesn't really make sense anymore numerically, even for 4 or 5 year construction time. But we see triplexes, you're essentially buying units for $500,000 each, a 2-bedroom. And I'm not sure if you guys know how much a 2-bedroom resale condo is downtown Toronto, but it ranges between what, $700,000-800,000,
Yeah.
roughly. So when you can get something very similar to rent, don't pay condo fees, and basically get essentially condo living at a discount price, it makes sense. And there's ways to finance these properties, right? If they're illegal triplexes or even non-illegal triplexes, depending on the lender, you can get the financing for it. So we're seeing a lot of people actually go for these. Actually, we closed a few this month alone, and there are multiple offers for gut jobs, turnkey, whatever it may be. We're seeing between 4 to 20 offers on a property for triplexes, quadplexes, etc. So it is a hot market right now in the downtown core.
So what are clients buying this year? Less pre-construction. As Ed was alluding to. Less pre-construction. We're starting to see condos if they make sense.
Yeah.
We're starting to see more triplexes, more freeholds,
I was going to say for the condos, you people are not. I think people who bought condos from me are not here right now, but we're seeing a lot of actual 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom condo purchases this month instead of just 1-bedrooms, and a lot of, especially depending on your budget, I think it's really the case. Is people are wanting to enter the real estate investment world. They're willing to take, I guess, a lifestyle cut and either use a 2nd bedroom as a rental unit or a short-term rental unit, where they're able to actually subsidize the mortgage substantially. Obviously, only a triplex is ideal, but it's not for everyone. Right? It's not.
Sometimes you need a stepping stone, right? Not everyone has $300,000 in the back pocket. You know, you reach into the sofa, maybe you'll find it, maybe you won't, right? But if that's the case for you, then a stepping stone approach can be the pragmatic approach for you.
Right.
Oh yeah. So.
Real slow. I was going to actually say there's also slides for gut jobs too, and I think that's the next tier up, right?
Did you vet these slides?
If you want to create value yourself, you would do a complete gut and renovation.
So we have clients.
Can we skip this?
$700,000 for triplex, 700 to 750.
So
cash.
obviously you need very, very deep pockets,
Right.
but we could totally walk through that process in terms of creating these triplexes as well.
At that point, you're creating value, which is quite different from buying something that pre-existing.
So we're starting to see the full gamut. Again, last year is a large focus on condos. For the way the market's shifting, we're starting to see an introduction back into freeholds this year.
Sorry, I have a question. So
Okay, we'll leave the slide up.
You were talking about assignments.
No.
With regards to assignments, what is, like, I guess it's always ruled by the market, supply and demand, but what is a reasonable discounted percentage price for a unit that you're assigning? Like what are you supposed to be looking to discount your price when you look at this?
There's no rule. It's basically, the way we look at it is, if I was going to purchase this, what do I need to buy it at to make this a viable investment? Right? So I'll give you an example though. So for example, the one that we were just talking about, it's built by Tridel, in the Bathurst, the SQ2, that's a 1+10, and he wants 571 square feet. So 950 a square foot, right? Resale for that would be well over 1,000, probably approaching 1,100. So, that's just one data point. Is there a rule of thumb? There's no rule of thumb. It depends on whatever the seller wants to sell it at, right? Or is willing to let it go at. As a buyer, I know what I need to buy it at in order to make it cash flow though, or at least cash flow neutral.
And I think that, and maybe this is where you're going at.
I was going to say on top. Why don't you go? Why you say?
It's the discount is one thing, but the deposit structure is way more important, right?
we won't delve too far into it, but at the same time, it's assignment deals usually is quite difficult because you need a lot of initial cash to buy an assignment, like a lot. You need to pay them the profits and deposits, but you know, if you are working with an investor realtor, we can find ways to maybe help solve that issue.
So I'll very tangibly, I'll take 10 seconds to explain what he's talking about. So the previous person purchased this and put down their deposits. They put down maybe 70,000, right? And they purchased at 360. Now they want to sell it at 540. So that profit margin, 180,000, let's say, right? They want to sell it at 540. They bought it at 360. They only put $70,000 down in deposits. Some sellers who are working with agents who don't know what the hell they're doing, they will expect that entire profit paid up front. That means not only do you have to pay them out the $70,000, you have to pay them out the $180,000. But who has $250,000 to buy this condo? Otherwise, you can structure it in a different way, such that you pay them their deposit, take out their position, you assume their position, and then the rest of the profit gets paid upon closing. Okay. So anyway, I want to just really quickly. I wanted to just. Flo and Chris are big advocates for our business. I really appreciate them. And
this is how you show your appreciation.
This is how I show my appreciation. They are our resident in-house welcomers. So at the end of this whole presentation, everything, if you are a shy type of person and you don't really feel comfortable talking, these are fairly friendly faces. At least go talk to them. They're people who have worked with the Volition team, and they can tell you a little bit about what we've done and their own experiences.
Cool. For Walmart.
I know, that's what I feel like an unpaid volunteer here. We got name tags today.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they are fancy.
They are fancy.
Okay. So now, sorry, this went a little longer than I wanted to, but now for the main event. You didn't come here to hear me speak. Maybe you came here to hear me speak, but the reason that you came here was to hear Peter speak. So Peter CUTTINI is a partner at the accounting firm BDO. Him and his partner George Zuby are staples within the RAIN community. They are frequently on the RAIN stage, keeping RAIN members and other investors up to date on all the changes in the CRA side. We personally, I use their firm to help me with my own tax planning, my accounting. I've got this really super complicated structure, and they help me navigate all of it. The reason we have them here now is because being March, tax season is in full swing right now. We want you to take something tangible away from this tonight. Something that you can actually implement in your own tax strategy or your own accounting and see some benefit from. So, I don't know, do you want anything you want to add?
No.
Okay, so without further ado, let's bring Peter.
I have control?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Now, I'm just going to walk around. Feel free to interrupt me if you have questions. I'll be more than happy to take those. Thank you for that great introduction. I'll say a little bit more about myself and what we do. Yeah, I'm an accountant. Big one. I'm a real estate investor-focused accountant. 70 to 80% of my clients are real estate investors. This is what I do. I don't do not-for-profits. I don't do oil and gas. I know how to put gas in my car, and that's it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good. Excellent. Ultimately, I'm also a real estate investor as well. Probably about 15 years ago, my wife and I decided that real estate was going to make a significant portion of our retirement and our future. Currently, we have over 30 doors. Right now, we're only looking for multi-families. I've done the single-family homes. I've done...
I'm going to switch to your presentation.
Good enough, thank you. I've done the single-family homes. I'm currently looking for 10 unit buildings and higher. Sweet spot 20 to 30. That's really what I look for right now. I will say the reason we chose real estate was for our children. We have 2 kids, and I want them to have a better life than my wife and I have. Ultimately, we're both first-generation Canadians. Our parents came over many, many years ago. we want them to have what we didn't have growing up. If they want to go to Harvard, I want to write the check. Whatever they want to do, I want to be able to provide for them. That said, before we go further, I'm going to share a story about my daughter Sarah. So picture this. It's Christmas Eve, and if you know Guelph, there's a very, very large church. It holds about 800 people. And if you're not there for 4 o'clock for the 5:15 kids mass on Christmas Eve, you don't get a seat. It's packed. So it's just after the collection plate came out. Okay? My daughter Sarah, all of 3 at the time, was getting fussy. So I picked her up, put her in my arms. Sarah, where's the priest? She looks around, and out loud in a very quiet church goes, "Look, Daddy, there's the man who took all our money." Yeah. So again, this is what we do. It's about saving taxes. It's not how much you make, it's about how much you keep. Structure. Structure is important. There's a whole bunch of different structures, but structuring is very, very important when it comes to real estate and also asset protection. So, sorry. That's not. If you want to go to our blog and our tax checklist, there's our website, there's our contact information. Feel free to, I know a couple of people have taken pictures, I'll let you take pictures. Feel free to reach out to us at any time.
Sorry, the highlight doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, oh well. Ah, well. So what are we going to talk about tonight? The right foundation. Like I said, structuring is key. Get it done right. And when we talk about foundation, I don't plan for where you are today. That's not what we plan for. Tell me where you want to be. 15, 20 years from now, we will plan for that. You don't look at it on a yearly basis. You look at it in the long term. Okay? Got some case studies. I've got some bookkeeping and stuff. How many people want to do JVs or partnerships? Excellent. I'll have a few things for you guys. A bunch of other topics, common pitfalls. So let's dive right in and talk about the right foundation. You'll see a whole bunch of different types. Partnerships, corporations, trusts, limited partnerships, joint ventures. They're all different. They all have specific accounting. They all have different advantages and disadvantages. And the case studies that we'll go through, we'll talk about them further. So when we're sitting down with clients, we talk about 5 different things. Flexibility of choice is always the most important to us. And what we mean by flexibility of choice is who gets paid. If you own a property personally, okay, and it's 50-50, that's the way it's going to be for the rest of your life. There's no changing that 50-50. If you do, you're paying a capital gain. So there's no flexibility. With a corporation, I get to pick who gets paid, how they get paid, when they get paid. It might not be this year, it might be 5 years from now. There's a whole bunch of more flexibility. When it comes to personal ownership, at this time of year, all you're doing is keeping score. Calculate your income, take off your expenses, how much money did you make, pay your tax. That's it. Second, legal issues. I am not a lawyer. I will say all of my properties, for this reason and this main reason alone, are in corporations. I do not want them to have the ability to go after all of my assets. If something goes wrong, they can have the corporation, and that's it. Okay? Now that said, my lawyer friends will always say, I should say this to people, if you do something stupid, if the fire marshal comes in and says you've got to replace a plug, you don't replace the plug, and it burns down, that's negligence. The corporation will never help you with that. That is just pure negligence. You notice the third thing is tax, and you're like, accountant, tax, third? Yeah, it's not the most important thing. The first two, to me, are more important than the taxation. I can make the taxation work, but it's not the number one thing that we look at. financing perspective, let's not kid ourselves. If you can't get a mortgage, I don't care what structure you are, if you can't buy the property, it don't matter. It really, are corporations harder to get financing? Absolutely. All of my properties are in corporations. I've never had an issue. I don't think I'm special. Investment in business considerations, this is a very minor point, but some people feel that if you're in a corporation, you look more professional. I've heard it out there, it's not a big issue for us. So, why should you incorporate? Number one, legal issues. Number two, flexibility. Number three, tax saving, potentially. You could have your real estate in a corporation and end up paying more tax. If that's the case, it's not for you. I will say this though, you may want to pay more tax. You may like paying more tax in a corporation. Because again, it's not on a yearly basis, it's the long term. So if I can tell you to pay more tax this year, but you're going to get a whole bunch more back in the future, you would do it. That's right. When to incorporate? Biggest question we get. It depends on you. And it depends on your plan. So if your plan, you come in and you tell me, hey, I want to buy 50 properties in the next 3 years. Let's get started. You know, let's move on. If you're going to tell me I want to buy a 10-unit apartment building, we're incorporating. We're not even having this discussion. The bank will want you to incorporate for multifamilies. They just will. If you're going to sit there and tell me, I don't know, I want to buy one, maybe two, probably doesn't make sense. And the reason for that is that we've had a whole bunch of clients who bought one, who bought two, and then went, I ain't touching real estate ever again. And then they got clients who buy one or two, and then it's game on, let's go. It doesn't hurt to have a few properties personally. What activities does the corporation do? Remember, it's a separate legal entity. So you need a separate bank account. It needs to file its own tax return every year. It is truly a separate taxpayer. How do I start? You come talk to me. You should always start with your accountant and then your lawyer. One of my lawyer friends says it this way. We're the architects, we build the plan, they are the builders. They put it together. I think I've pretty much gone through this. Flexibility is huge. Everyone is different. I can guarantee you Mike will have a fact and Chris will have similar facts, but if their views on those choices are different, like I said, everything in line is incorporation for legal issues. I'm not ever owning a property personally. If Mike says, it's not a huge issue to me, I'll get insurance, great. We might not recommend corporations. It really does depend on what you value. There are no cookie cutter structures. If an accountant, a lawyer, whomever says you should do this, and it's cookie cutter, and they give the exact same recommendation 100 times, in 100, walk away. There is no cookie cutter. I'm going to share a story. And I always say this, but forget the fancy-dancy deductions. I have a client, he's very aggressive. So, CRA was auditing him. And let's not kid ourselves, if you're going to get into real estate, everybody here is going to get audited. You will. Fact of life. There's no way around it. They're here, you are going to get audited. So, the auditor's at his office. And he's going through his meals and entertainment expenses. Great. So what is this? Oh, I took so-and-so out. Oh, what is this? Oh, I took so-and-so out. Oh, great. And then another one. Oh, I took this person out. Oh, really? Yeah. The date said just February 14th. And on the receipt, it said couples dinner. He took out his wife and he was trying to deduct it. Now we all sit there. It was $80. First of all, I should have taken his wife to a better place than that. But here's the killer. That auditor thought he was a liar. That auditor was at his office for 5 days going through everything. Is that what you want? Of course not. And if anybody looked at the budget yesterday, Not only is the CRA audit team for real estate strong, I've met the leader, she's great. She's a real estate investor, she knows what she's talking about. That's not good news for us. But they're now putting another $500 million into auditing real estate and offshore transactions. That's big dollars. They're here. You will get audited. I'll give you the flip side of the fancy dancy deductions. I got audited myself. My accountant, who happens to be my wife, yeah, she was. We met at work. She was my boss then, and she's my boss now.
At home too.
Come on. So we get audited. She puts together this package. It's tabbed, it's color coded, it's referenced. Okay. I give it to the auditor, shows up in my office at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's it. You know, here, coffee's here, make yourself home. 10:30 go down. Hey, you need anything? Nope, doing great. 12 o'clock I go down. Hey, if you want lunch, it's just down the street. Always be nice to your auditor. No question of it. He was like, I got nothing. Shook my hand, done, put it away. That's how you want to be. You don't want to be the first guy. I hate saying this, and I apologize for being political. The current regime doesn't like corporations, doesn't like small businesses. They had a massive attack on corporations in 2017. It was significantly fought. You probably heard the whole issues. I still think it may come down the road. If the Liberals get in this year, we may see these arcane rules come back into play. It's more expensive. It's going to cost you $2,000 to $3,000 to set up, potentially more, even 10, 20, depending on how complicated your structure is. And it's going to cost you more every year. It's not a personal tax return. To do the financial statements and tax return for your corporation, for an active company, I'd say you'd be looking $2,000 a year. So budget $2,000 to $2,500 between accounting and legal. Some additional work. You got to do your own tax return. You got to do the minutes. So many people have corporations that never do their minutes. You should get those done every year. Yeah, I was talking to you. I'll mention you a few times, but I won't. Do it right the first time. It's so much easier to do it right from the beginning than try to fix stuff down the end. Like I said, it still might not be the right choice. There are times when we say, no, it doesn't make sense to incorporate. Because I'm not going to tell you to do something if it's just going to waste your time and your money. That's not what I'm here for. And again, you got to pay your fair share. I hate saying this. You do. You don't want to pay more than your fair share, but you got to pay your fair share.
So, Peter, if we can go back, if we're going to try to figure out some specific examples, back one more. Forward one. When would incorporating actually make sense? Should we talk about active business?
I've got about 7 cases.
Okay.
We'll talk about them then.
Okay, cool.
Not to...
Yeah, no, that's good.
Like I said, government knows about the advantages of these corporations. Bill Morneau had significant attack on these last year. I won't go through everything here. The one thing here I will say is truly bigger. I would say up to 18 months ago, I may do 2 family trusts a year. George and I probably in the last 18 months have done 70, 80. It's becoming a significantly better tool to hold the corporation or even direct ownership in real estate. And I'll get to those in some of the cases. Proper structure. Again, I don't know why. Accountants love boxes, and boxes mean corporations. Okay? It's just, that's the best art we can do. Triangles are trusts, ovals are partnerships. I don't know why, it just is. At the end of the day, these are just some potential structure ideas that we will see. It could be a corporation owned by a family trust and an individual. There could be 3 corporations owned by the family trust with some partnerships involved. There's a whole bunch of different structures. Get what makes sense for you. This one looks complicated, because it is. It's a client of mine. He's probably worth $50 million. He's doing pretty well. I want to share a story. I was at an event similar to this. I had someone come up to me. Yeah, I want the 3-tier structure. That 3-tier corporation, if you may not have heard of that. And I'm like, okay, great. What do you want to do? I have no idea. Good. Don't get caught up in the excitement. If your friend's got a 3-tier structure, doesn't mean you have to have one. Get what's right for you. So let's talk about case studies. Jack and Jill. I know we're boring. Combined family income of $60,000. They want 2 properties. Small pension or RSP. How many people think they should incorporate? Smart room. No real need for a corporation. Unless the liability issue is so big, we probably not recommend a corporation in this structure. Now, Bill owns an engineering firm and it's an incorporated business. The down payment for any properties are coming from that incorporated business. Should he incorporate, yes or no? A couple of yeses. I'll give you the simple answer on this one. He is a dumbass if he doesn't. And that is a technical term. 99% of the time you will incorporate in this scenario. And I'll give you an example. A client of mine, a very good friend of mine, playing golf 2 summers ago. Comes up to me, Peter, I just bought a 6-plex in Hamilton. Cool. Yeah, I went to my mortgage broker. If there's any mortgage brokers here, I do apologize. They saved me a quarter of a point buying it personally. I'm like, oh crap, hair goes off the back of my neck. For the pleasure of saving $2,400 a year, he had to write a check to the government of $70,000. What's the ROI on that? How long is it going to take to make that up? We should all be happy about that in the room. He helps pay down the national debt. You don't want to be that person. Okay, Bill and Lisa. Lisa earns $150. She's top bracket. She's probably paying 52-53% tax here in Ontario. Bill stays home, got a small little gig on the side, $20,000. 3 kids. Wants 3 or more income properties, plus land development. How many people think they should incorporate? Likely corporation. The land development part's interesting. So if anybody's thinking of getting into land development, whether it's, some people may have heard of Graybrook or a whole bunch of different types of land developments, it's considered active business income. You don't get the small business rate on that, but you still get 26.5% corporate tax. It's not bad compared to Lisa's. If it was taxed in Lisa's hands, she's paying 53% every year. So this is really where the corporation comes into play. Amon and Sarah, again, high earners. They, again, want more. They want significant properties. They want to do some second mortgages. She wants to take a 1-year sabbatical and has 2 kids. What do you think the structure is on this one? Anyone corporation? Yes, no? Yes. Most likely a corporation. And here, not only do they have high income, and if they're buying these rental properties and the second mortgages, they will all be considered passive investments for tax purposes. Real estate is not passive. As we found out today, you're going to have to work for it. The government still says holding long-term rentals, residential rentals, is passive income. The initial tax rate on that passive income in a corporation is approximately 50%, 50. And this is when clients usually go, what? Here's the magic. I'll give you the secret sauce. 30% of that 50% tax is what they call refundable dividend tax. Yes, the government will pay out, will give you that 30% back when you pay a dividend out to a Canadian shareholder, an individual, okay? Effectively making your corporate tax rate at $20%, sorry. Sarah plans to take a 1-year sabbatical. Here's really where it comes into play. Properly structured, if she has no other sources of income, she can get a dividend out of that Canadian company get the 30% back, and on a $40,000 dividend, her effective tax rate is less than $2,000. So if she earned that money personally, either one of them, they'd be paying 53% right away, no planning, zero. With the corporation, yes, they are paying that 50% right away. Okay? Okay, 2 seconds. You can reduce it to 20 and then pay out dividends to you. This is the pension plan of real estate. Because if I'm paying top rate personal tax, and I'm paying 50 now, and I'm paying 50 in the corporation, but I don't get those dividends for 20 years, who cares? I still can get that money back down the road. I'm no worse off, and then when I retire and I don't have a pension, that's when I can start taking out those dividends. My wife and I, $80,000 a year, and I pay $4 grand in tax. And the government gives me money back. It's not a bad deal. That's not a bad deal at all.
Yes, sir, I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
So just in this example here, just investing in seconds that mortgage through a corporation.
Say passive income.
Right.
Straight passive income.
Right.
So again, you can get that 30% back on that second
On the
mortgage.
earning period.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your other previous case, land development income, you call it.
It's regular business income. It's considered active income. You don't get the small business rate, but you get the 26.5%.
What would you classify as land development income?
There's a lot of companies out there. Greybrook is a classic example. Fortress was a classic example. I'm going to talk about that one. Ultimately, you're giving money to a firm, say Greybrook. They are going in with developers, and they are giving them financing for the property.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get part of the profits on the way out, plus an interest payout, right?
Yeah.
That's considered active income for tax purposes.
It's an LP though, so you get.
It may be an LP. 15. Yep. In the first few years, it's probably going to be a loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when it comes out, if you own it personally, you're paying 53%. In the corporation, you're paying 26.5%. All right.
I'm a bit slow. Just on the case 3, because the husband has like a lower income.
Yeah.
So if the rental income actually came under bill, then maybe they don't need to incorporate.
2 things. Where did the down payment come from?
Yeah, there will be. So depends on the title structure, right? Like
No, hold on. If this has always been the income,
right.
CRA could argue that no. I don't care if it's in Bill's name. The money came from Lisa for the down payment. The income attributes back to Lisa. Really? Yes. Jesus. Yeah.
So even though they do 50-50 on the title, they still go back. Lisa for
potentially
majority of it.
Potentially. The second thing that also comes up: what happens if Bill gets a job next year, and Lisa's the one who takes it?
Right.
There's no flexibility there.
Okay.
That's what that's trying to highlight.
I see.
Potentially also a family trust with 2 kids. Up until summer of 2017, you were able to pay a dividend to a shareholder if they were 18 to 25, and they would still get those low rates. The government basically wiped it out. It's next to impossible to get that. It was a great way to plan for university. I had mine set up that way to piss me off. Okay. Billy Bob and Bobby Sue, high income earners. I know, we use bad names. Registered savings, investing through RSPs and TFSAs. So say they have a big RSP, each has got a couple $1 million in their RSP. When they hit 71, they're going to start pulling that out every year, and they're going to be taxed on that. There's potentially they could be paying significant amounts of tax. The structure here is, there is a structure, there's a company out there that through real estate is able to take your RSPs and convert it all or a significant portion to a TFSA. Yeah. I strategy. Anytime with newer strategy, CRA may attack it. I believe it works. I've seen the legal documents. I've seen the opinion from the law firm. I think it works. But again, if you have people in this situation, this may make perfect sense for them who want to invest in real estate and using their RSAs. Grandma and grandpa, they want to put some money into the kids. Corporation? Yes or no? Probably not. But not personal ownership either. This one may be the classic family trust owns the real estate. Okay? Where the great part of the family trust is. So say, even if the kids are 1 and 2, the family trust earns the income. If there's a property in here, it may not make a lot of money, it may not cash flow all that much, but there's significant appreciation. So if the income is taxed in the family trust, it's going to be at high rates. So you're paying 53%. No way around that. Where the advantage of the family trust really comes into play, they go to sell the property. Okay? They get a capital gain. Family trust gets a capital gain. Capital gains can be allocated to any child. So your 2-year-old can have a $100,000 capital gain. That's where the family trust comes into play. We are seeing a lot more of these structures. Sometimes the family trust owns the corporation. You see that all the time. But this is the classic example where I think a family trust owning real estate directly makes a lot of sense.
What is a family trust?
Why did you guys know? A family trust is a concept. It's based on British law. Okay? It's basically it's not a corporation. It's a legal term that I am placing something, and usually you settle it with a dollar coin or something. You put this in trust. Okay? And now you've created this trust, and that trust owns the real estate. Okay? There's no definitive term for what a family trust is.
It's like a fellowship of the ring?
No, not bad. Not bad. I like that.
How do you create a family trust?
You come see us and then go to your lawyer.
Oh, so it's a legal entity.
Absolutely. It's not technically a pure legal. It is a legal agreement. There has to be a trust agreement put into place, but it's not like a corporation where it's a separate. It's different than a corporation. It's an ambiguous, nebulous concept.
Peter?
Yeah.
Are you going to have any case studies about moving these properties that were purchased personally?
Okay. Let's talk about that right now. Okay. If you have properties personally, and you're here in Ontario, most likely, we've done it occasionally, you will not transfer those properties into a corporation. Okay? There may be times when it makes sense, but here's the big kicker why you don't. You do that here in Ontario and you pay land transfer tax again. I hate paying that the first time.
Yeah.
So 95% of the time it doesn't make sense to transfer those to the corporation. That's why I say a lot of people buy 1, 2, or 3 personally and then move to the corporate structure down the road. It doesn't, the tax planning is still there, I just have to do it slightly different. Properties 4, 5, 6, properties 4, 5, 6, 7, and forward from there. If you're going to tell me you're going to buy 10 properties today, I'm probably telling you to incorporate. Yeah. So you were first?
So you're saying that you have 3 properties, you would keep them within your personal name, and any holding properties you would put that within the corporation. So it would be
correct.
2 different things going on.
Yes.
What's more expensive, the family trust or corporation?
What's more expensive?
Set up and maintain.
A family trust is going to be more expensive to set up than a corporation.
On an annual basis, the corporation more expensive?
Corporation costs about $2,500. Family trust $15.
What's your personal rule for assets under a corporation? Do you incorporate every property, or is it because you have a certain valuation of assets inside?
Great question. Myself?
Yes.
I put everything under separate corporations. I can do my own tax returns. I don't pay that fee. It's not a big deal to me. I can do my own tax returns. A lot of clients, it comes down to a dollar value. How much are you willing to lose? Whether it's $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. It also depends on the type of assets, I would say. If you're buying, like I said, a 10-plex, it's a separate corporation. We're not even having this argument. If you're going to be doing rent to own, and they're coming back significantly in the marketplace today. If you're going to be doing flips, they may be in a separate corporation than your passive, your long-term holds. And the reason for that is flips, rent to owns, are considered active business income, okay? On the first $500,000 of profit every year, the effective tax rate on that income is 13.5%. 1-3. That's pretty much as low as you're going to get. So if you are doing flips, you're going to incorporate. It just, unless you're just doing one, if this is going to be something that's big for you and you're going to do it over and over and over again, you will incorporate. Just, it makes no sense not to.
So you mentioned that put it under a corporation because it's a legal advantage, but then you give an example of when legally you're not, it doesn't help you in the, can you give an example where legally you are more protected? Because you give an example.
Sure, slip and fall. Oh, sorry, I've seen this. Slip and fall. London, Ontario, big student town. Property, student rental, they had $4 million in insurance. Medical student, slip, fall, paralyzed. $6 million lawsuit, $4 million in insurance, they're done. Over, declare bankruptcy. Nah, let's not hit ourselves, that's the worst case scenario. You know, it really helps you for those slips and falls, those non-negligent expense type of lawsuits.
Don't both cases go to insurance?
Yeah, what happens if you don't have enough insurance? Tell me what's enough insurance?
Then how does the corporation help?
Okay.
Let's say you don't
you have that case there in London. If the corporation will get the $4 million payout, you basically go to that person and say, here's the key. Here's the corporation. It's yours. All your other assets are protected. If it was held personally, they go after everything.
So it's not your fault, they cannot go after you. They can only go after the corporation. It's Section 4 case.
Yes.
Example.
Yeah. Yep.
Just to follow up, if you are holding currently some properties that are flipped, that are going to be flipped in the future, it still doesn't make sense to put them in a corporation.
Probably not, because you have the land. That one I might want to look at.
Okay.
Because at 13.5%, if you're at top rates and you're paying 53, and it's not, there's no capital gains on flips. It's not 50% taxable. It's 100% income. You make $200,000 on a flip, you're paying $200,000 of income. There's no 50% rule on flips or rent outs. They're straight income.
So are assignments flipped?
Yes. Assignments are regular income. There's some realtors, no, you're not one of them, who think assignments are non-taxable. I've actually had this argument with people. You're going to tell me you're going to make $150,000 on an assignment and CRA is not going to want that money? Yeah. Come on. Like, I don't understand that. There's just, it's straight income, it's not capital gains, move on.
Peter, a question on your family trust structure.
Yep.
From an income treatment perspective, where is the income attributable to? Is that personal or is it the trust?
Okay. So let's use the classic, the corporation is owned by the family trust. Okay? Whatever, the corporation will pay its tax on that. And any income distributed out to the beneficiaries, not the shareholders, because the shareholder is the family trust, the trustees have the discretion on who gets paid what and when.
Oh, I see.
And it's the same characteristics. So if it comes out as if it was a capital gain in the corporation, it comes out as a capital gain to the beneficiaries down the road.
Got it. So trust really a shareholder structure, so to speak.
Sort of.
Sort of. Got it.
Yep.
Got it. So there's still a corporation or a...
Most likely there's still a corporation or multiple corporations involved.
Got it. Okay. And I was wondering if you were going to touch on estate planning, or is that something out of scope for today?
I got a little bit of a slide on it. Estate planning, I could be here for hours. Like, let's not kid ourselves. And estate planning for everybody in this room is going to be different. Do it. Revisit your estate planning constantly. Okay? Some people, a lot of real estate investors will get insurance to cover any future capital gains. And then you just give the properties to the next generation, effectively tax-free. Because insurance is tax-free. Okay? There's a whole bunch of potentials with the estate planning and tax savings with that family trust. If you have a corporation now, we might want to do an estate freeze, which means we lock the value into you, and all future value goes to the beneficiaries of the trust and not you. So if you've made $2 million in real estate and you go, I'm good with that, I can pass on all future profits to the next generation. So if that real estate that's gone from $2 million to $5 million after that estate freeze, if you were to pass away, you'd be paying tax on that $5 million. But if you do it to the estate freeze, you'll only be paying tax on that $2 million, and the $3 million spread will go to the next generation, and they don't have to pay tax on it until they pass away.
Got it. Thank you, Peter.
No problem.
So how, just as an example, when I started down the journey of my estate planning, I went to BDO. Like Peter said, these guys are the architects. These guys will sit down with you, they'll understand, okay, this is your current family structure, you're planning to have any more kids and everything else. What do you want to pass on to the next generation? What do you want to pass on to charities? What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? What do you see for yourself? Take it with me. Take it all with me.
How do you control it from the grave?
But these guys were the ones who sat down, and then after we had that sort of plan in place, it was, okay, now that I have this plan in place, take this to your lawyer, set up your will, set up your power of attorneys, your continuing power of attorney for your financial, one to handle financial matters, someone to handle kids and everything else. And then, for example, there was a gap in my insurance, life insurance, and so on and so forth. So they sent me out to an insurance broker. So these guys were the center hub. They were quarterbacking the entire thing.
I'll give you just a couple of quick tidbits. If you're a real estate investor and you don't have your will, you fail. Because especially if you have children. If you have minor children and you have real estate, there's some government office that will dictate your real estate in the future. You don't want that. There's trustee,
Public guardian trust.
Yeah, thank you.
I bought a property from them, that's why.
There you go. Second, this is just a general tidbit, don't make the people who are going to get your beneficiaries of your estate the trustees. Or sure, so they can be the trustees, but make sure they don't have the ability to pull the plug. You don't want to give them. Oh, mom and dad, I'm sorry. I hate saying that, I've seen it.
Ouch.
Yeah. So let's talk about Paul and Kim. 2 kids, charitable aspirations, looking to invest in 2 provinces. Corporation. Slight trick on this one. If they are going to go corporation, it will be a federally incorporated company. They have to pay a little bit extra. It's $20 a year to register it, but it allows you to have multiple provinces under that corporation. Okay? And potential charitable foundations. We are seeing significant, I'll get to you in a second. We are seeing significant charitable foundations. So, especially with real estate, you've got $1 million property and your kids are taken care of. Hey, maybe I want to leave this to the Cancer Society, to my church, to whomever. We're seeing a lot more of these charitable foundations on large real estate.
I have a question about 2 provinces. What if it's outside of Canada and in Ontario?
If it's outside of Canada, most likely it's going to be a separate structure. It really depends on what country we are talking about. I'll get to the U.S. I got a slide on the U.S. down the road, but
very, very, very rarely do I commingle my Canadian assets with foreign assets. There may be a structure that may make sense in that foreign jurisdiction owned by a Canadian corporation or whatever. I would not put the two of them together. That's just my personal. Unless we're talking personal ownership and you're on a vacation home in Florida. Yeah. Like I said, every situation is unique. There is no cookie cutter when it comes to these structures. Find out what works for you. Okay, let's talk about bookkeeping. How many people like to do bookkeeping? I'm not even looking. If there's a hand up, I'm shocked. We all hate doing it, okay? Do it. Do it monthly. If you're not doing it monthly, do it quarterly at worst. The reason why? If you do it yearly, what was that expense? What was this? You forget things. You lose deductions. You pay more taxes. I won't talk about you now.
You are talking about me.
Also, you're a real estate investor. You want to be a sophisticated real estate investor. How do you know how well the property is doing if you're not doing the bookkeeping? You guessing? Is it just the cash that's in the bank? Do the bookkeeping. If you cannot do it quarterly, outsource it. Find a good bookkeeper. They're worth their weight in gold.
So this is a good point. In terms of knowing the performance of your property, if you are someone who's going out trying to find joint venture money, and you're accountable to your joint venture, long-term joint venture partners, your co-venturers.
Co-venturers, well done, I'm getting it drilled out into
your co-venturers, you're obligated to them to show them the performance of the property. You can't show them just once a year. You have to keep them up to date. So this is the only way to do so. Otherwise, you're running this like a business. You have to keep everyone in the loop, and you're accountable to them.
If you have co-venturers and the co-venture agreement says you will report quarterly, 1 month after the end of the quarter, report 2 weeks after. Don't be 3 months after. You lose credibility. And when you're especially if you want to be the working partner, as they say, or the working venturer, and you want other people's monies, you need to keep them. You need to be accountable, and you need to keep them happy. So don't give them the bookkeeping on April 30th if it's a personal ownership. Don't get it to them systematically, whatever is called for in the agreement. Like I said, being organized equals better cash flow, which equals more tax deduction, which equals more money in your pocket. Go to our website, bdoreinvestor.ca. Download our tax checklist. It gives you a starting point for what is deductible for real estate. What I mean by short, medium, long-term plan, like I was saying before, you may want to pay more tax up front to save money down the road. Have that plan, make sure you work it. JV and shareholders agreement. Incredibly, incredibly important. Make sure you know which type of agreement you're in. And the reason I say that is we had a client came to us, said it was a corporation. Great, corporation hold the property. Everybody was a shareholder. So they had a shareholder agreement. We didn't see the agreement, so we filed 3 years worth of tax returns, assuming it was a corporation. No. This was actually a co-venture. It wasn't even a partnership. Okay? We had to go back and amend 3 years worth of tax return. It cost him 10 grand. Why? He thought he had a corporation. He thought he had a shareholder agreement. He did it on the internet. Don't ever, ever, ever download a generic one off the internet. Go to your lawyer, spend the money. It will save you in the long run. So what is involved in these agreements, whether it's a shareholder agreement, a partnership agreement, a co-venture agreement? And I will say this, if you are doing joint ventures, you are 99% of the time you are not in partnership. Partnership has a negative tax connotation to a joint venture agreement. And then, just to quickly explain to it, CCA, amortization is taken at the partnership level. You have no choices on who to take it. If it's at the co-venture level, you may want to take your CCA on your side of the property, and your co-venturer may not. If it's a partnership, doesn't matter. You have no choice. It's done at the partnership level. That can have negative tax consequences.
Do you have a co-tenancy agreement, partnership or JV?
Co-tenancy agreement is different. Co-tenancy is on title. You're looking at a joint venture agreement, not a partnership agreement.
Co-tenancy is on title?
Yes. Co-tenancy is a type of ownership.
So there's one person on title, but two really own.
Okay, now we're talking two different things. If one person is on title, okay, that is called legal ownership. Okay? Whatever's on title is legal ownership. Corporation can be whatever. The tax doesn't follow the legal ownership. It follows the beneficial ownership. So I may own this clicker here. If I beneficially give it to Mike, he reports all income and expenses based on this.
So the co-tenancy can define the tax.
Correct. The other thing I will say about, and we'll get to this in a second, the other thing I will say about joint venture agreements, partnership agreements, whatever the case may be, you can own your portion however you choose to. Okay? With beneficial ownerships, if one person's on title, I can still have my portion of that agreement owned by a corporation, by a trust, by a partnership. And my co-venture can have it however it works for them. Okay? That's the nice part about those co-venture agreements. You can have different types of ownership. Okay? So, what's in these agreements? I'll just give you a laundry list. It should be in there. What happens on divorce? What happens on death? What happens on reporting? What happens on who signing? If you're in a co-venture agreement, you probably don't want to have both people sign every single check. There should be limits. If I was the money venturer, the limit might be 5, 10, whatever that number is. Anything below that, the working venturer can write the check on that without my signature and my knowledge. That's their job. Have that agreement spell out all the terms. What happens if someone goes mentally insane? And say that happens. If you're not incapacitated, who gets to make the choices? Divorce is a big one. I will also say, make sure you do this at the beginning of the venture agreement, or the partnership, or the shareholder, or whatever the case may be. And the reason you do this, you're friends at that point in time. If you wait for the fight, it's too late. You want to make sure that that agreement is in place, because that's really what happens is it spells out the rules of engagement. If there's a fight, who gets to buy somebody out? What is a shotgun clause? That all should be in there. I can go on about that for hours. Like I was here's a classic one. I had a client who was invested with this person who was the working venturer. The working venturer decided they were done and they moved to Belize for 6 months. The agreement said, you leave the country, property's mine. That was specifically in there. You know, this is the type of stuff that has to be in these type of agreements. Divorce is huge. There should be a right of first refusal. Also, in a lot of these agreements, you should not have, if I was a venturer, someone wanted to sell their portion, I should have the right of first refusal to buy them. If I can't come up with the money to buy them, then they can go to the open market. Don't forget, there you go. State tax. Also, have the conversation with your children. Or your parents. I am my parents' executor. I know where everything is. You know, I know where the will is. I know where everything is. It's a difficult discussion to have because we're talking about dying here. But you have to have that. I'll give you an example. One of the retired partners at BDO, he said very well for himself. He pays his children $10,000 quarterly to show up at the family meetings to talk about the business. Think they're showing up? Every time. Every single time. Basically. Great part about it is you get to see the grandkids too. Because they're not local. They fly in every quarter. He's done very well for himself.
Oh, Peter?
Yep.
Sorry, you mentioned briefly about incorporating federally.
Yep.
So, can you just touch on briefly the difference, maybe the benefits of?
Sure. If I have an Ontario corporation, okay, it's incorporated in the province of Ontario, I cannot own Alberta real estate. I'd have to get that corporation registered in Alberta, pay additional fees at that point in time. If I had a federally incorporated company, I can go wherever I want. It doesn't matter.
So if some of my family members live in another province and I want to be shareholders,
that's fine. That's the corporation. The shareholding doesn't matter. Okay. It's the assets underneath it. Yeah. Okay. So, anybody want to invest in the U.S.? Eventually? Whether you like Donald Trump or not, and I'm not going to get into a political conversation about Mr. Trump, he has changed the landscape so much that investing in the U.S. is actually very attractive right now. Their corporate tax rate is 20%. Pretty good. He has changed the landscape. I'm not going to make a judgment on whether he's good or bad, but that 20% tax rate is a game changer. We are seeing money flow out of Canada because of this. So if you are considering investing in the U.S., definitely get somebody who understands both sides of the border. I'll give you a tidbit. If you go down to the U.S., they're going to say open up an LLC, limited liability corporation. Great for Americans. Absolutely sucks for Canadians. There's potential for double tax, and you can be paying as high as 60 to 70% tax with an LLC. There are different ways of doing it that will give you the same benefit of the doubt, the same benefit as the LLC without doing an LLC. Charitable giving, like I talked about that one already. Foundations are becoming significantly higher. Common pitfalls, okay. Like I said, I can get mortgages in corporations. It can be done. Does it eliminate lenders? Absolutely. There is no question it limits the number of the lenders. I know, I do this with my clients. BMO, RBC, CIBC has no issues with corporations. And again, that's like saying I want to buy a computer and I'm limited to Apple, Hewlett-Packard, and Lenovo. I think I can do it. Number two, does it cost significantly more? Financing? No, not really. The most I've ever had to pay versus the personal rate is 0.25 higher for a corporate mortgage. Not an issue.
Sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't hear you in the back.
The most I've ever had, myself personally, the most I've ever had to pay versus the personal stated rate was 0.25 higher for it to be a corporation.
Yeah, but when you refinance, the fees are 10 times higher.
No.
Yeah.
No.
The environmental engineering, appraisal.
They're going to have the environmental and all that will happen no matter whether you own it personally or in a corporation.
If it's a fourplex, it's not
the ownership structure does not affect that. That is a banking issue whether you own it personally or corporately.
That's true. Part of it is related to the property side.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Capital gains versus income. We get this all the time. It's one of the most litigated areas of Canadian tax law. What's the difference? A capital gain is something long-term. Your intent was long-term. Only half of the gain is taxable. Okay? Versus regular income, it's 100% taxable. There is no 50% free. We talked about assignments. We talked about rent-to-owns. Where this truly comes into place, I'll give you an example. You can buy a property today. If your intent was to hold it for the next 20 years, and 5 months later, You get the, oh my God, thank you very much, somebody's doubling your price. That's still a capital gain. Okay? You can own a property for 5 years. If your intent, and in the agreement it says, I will sell it on this date in 5 years from now, sorry, straight income. It's not a capital gain. So the length of holding the property does not determine whether it's income or capital. It is your intent for the property. Okay? Flips, capital gains versus income. Flips, no question of it, they're straight income. Incorporate, incorporate, incorporate. You will save yourself a ton of money. Okay, let's talk about principal residence exemption. We see this one occasionally, and CRA is becoming aware of the principal residence exemption. They are attacking this. I'll give you an example. There was a court case. Real estate investor, contractor, how do I do it for time? Good. Real estate investor, contractor, bought 7 properties over a 9-year period. Thought if you lived in them for 12 months, it's a principal residence. Whoever came up with this 12-month idea doesn't exist. Absolutely does not exist. So his first property was about $200,000. The last property was over $2 million. He got reassessed 15 years later. The entire thing was considered regular income. Interest, penalties, tax, game over, sell everything, done, bankruptcy. If he was smart, he would have put that in a corporation, paid his tax, and gotten away with paying significantly less tax. Just because you live in it for a period of time does not necessarily make it your principal residence. If you are continuously flipping it, most likely it was not. And if you sell a property, contain a second, you have to declare your principal residence now on Schedule 3 of your personal tax return if you sold it during that year. So you're going to do it. They're going to know. There's no way around that one now.
So at what point does it become? So I understand this is sort of like an nebulous area. There's no right answer. But at what point will, let's say for example, I got the second one, I want to trade the 2 in and buy them all together. Yeah. I could sell them both in under a year and close them the next one in May. So
you can only designate one as a principal residence.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. But the last one, all the equity up to this point in time, because some of us I keep. The second one, I keep from the time I move in, so let's say May 1st, from that point on, whatever equity I build up, I keep. But what's the guarantee that CRA won't come back to me and say, oh no, you're clearly a failure?
No guarantee. Right. I would say if you've got one property as your principal residence and you've lived in it and it's your intent, I think you're fine. That second one, you're paying capital gains on it, for sure, wherever. Where they don't like it is this multiple continuously flipping.
And where do you pay the capital gains when you move out of the first one? Is my other question. Like, what, do you have it assessed at that point in time so that they know, okay, from here onward, do you pay capital gains?
Okay. So now we're talking change in use.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So it's my principal residence. I want to move into something else. Sure. Okay. Yeah. Great. I have to declare on my tax return Section 45(2) election that basically says I am changing my principal residence to a rental property. Yeah. Okay? CRA, please do not tax me because I haven't sold it. They will not tax you until that point in time you sell it. The gain, okay? Say you bought it for, let's use $100,000. Sure. The point of conversion is $250. Okay? Yeah. Anything forward from that $250 is now $250 is your new cost base. Yeah. And anything, if you sell it for $4, that $150 is now taxed.
I understand, but how do you get to the $250? Do you have to have it appraised that point?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, great. Well, who does the benchmark of where it is? Because my house was recently appraised. Yeah. I can tell you what.
You have a third-party appraiser? Yeah. You're fine.
Bank of Nova Scotia. You're fine. Scotia Bank.
I've seen them argue that once. If you get a third-party appraiser, sure, fine. Most people just get a letter from their real estate agent saying it's worth approximately this much.
Even if it's from like the actual bank that gave the mortgage?
Oh yeah, God bless. That's a third party telling you what the value is. Okay, fine. I can't see CRA arguing that one. Perfect. Where it comes into play is you don't get an appraisal, you don't do anything. Oh yeah, it's worth $5. Okay. Or it's worth $6 million. Yeah, that's all my principal residence. No.
So in other words, for that scenario to replay itself, they've got to see like 8 moves in 9 years that kind of thing.
There has to be a pattern, absolutely. Yep.
Actually, while you're on change of use, do you want to comment on the like sort of little known rule that a
4-year rule?
Yeah, 4-year rule.
You are a real estate. You have your principal residence. Say you move to Vancouver. Let's use Vancouver as an example. You get transferred over there for 4 years. You keep your property here in Toronto. You convert it to a rental. If you do not have another principal residence and you do not take CCA, that's key. If you take amortization, you lose this rule. You can get another 4 years of principal residence on that property. So you can shelter another 4 years of gains.
Depreciation, if they're CCA?
If you do not take depreciation on the property, you can use the rule. The moment you take depreciation on the property, it's no longer a principal residence.
Okay, so we were talking about triplexes as recommended.
Yep.
So if I want to buy one and live in it, is it a primary residence? Or
No, unlikely, no. And the reason, triplex especially, substantially has to be a principal residence. If you're living in a third, the other 2/3 are rental, it's not your principal residence.
Even though it's being lent, like the lending rules are...
Yep. But the lending rules are relevant from the tax perspective. If it's a duplex, there's arguments you could say greater than 50, I live in greater than 50%, I rent out the basement, absolutely, it's still a principal residence. It's not like Kindersize. I'd buy a 50-unit apartment building, live in one, that's my principal residence. There has to be that de minimis test. There has to be that greater than 50%.
You can't prorate it based on the unit. Let's say the triplex, you can't say a third of that relates to your principal residence.
As soon as you're over 50%, you're done.
The basic question is about corporation. If you have done your corporation, you only pay capital gain regardless of the debt, right?
No.
The property of the corporation.
No. Whether it's incorporation still is intent.
So what's the intent? What should be the intent for you to only pay capital gains?
To only pay capital gains versus regular income, your intent needs to be a long-term goal.
Not a long-term, 5 years plus?
No, undefined.
Undefined.
You cannot have that plan that on year 5 I will sell that property. If that is in the agreement, it's no longer a capital
When you
gain.
sell, it has to be something happening for you to sell?
Not necessarily. It can be 3 years from now and the market's tripled and I want to sell that. I can take profit off the table. That's not the issue. But my initial intent was to hold that long term.
So how do you prove that if it's not mentioned anywhere? But it's not mentioned.
If it's not mentioned anywhere, unlikely you're going to get it. Where it comes into play, seen people try to do this. They go to the realtor and they've already got the plans to have it sold and they've got they're setting it up, and if it's just a regular long-term hold. Right. That said though, you may want income treatment. If it's in a corporation, 13.5% on active income. It's a flip. If it's not considered that passive income, 13.5% corporate tax. That's pretty good. That's very good.
Wasn't done in corporation anyway.
Pardon me? Where was that?
It's an advantage to have it done in corporation.
1 year to the lower property in terms of depreciation. The reason for that is it's the 1+1 rule. So if you designate a year, you get an extra year. Okay, so say you own 2 properties for 20 years. I designate 19 to that property that's got the biggest gain. I get the +1, so I wipe out all the gain on that. If I designate 1 year to the other property, say the cottage, I get 2/20, so I can defer 10% of the gain.
But you do it every year?
No, you have to make the designation when you sell it.
Oh, when you sell it?
Yep. So, making bad interest good, I'm not going to get into this. Smith maneuver, a way of taking non-deductible interest and making it deductible. You have to go through the rigmaroles, you have to set it up properly, but it can be done. Okay? Basically what you're doing is you're saying all the repayment is going to the non-deductible debt, you're refinancing it up for investment purposes, now it becomes deductible. That's the Smith maneuver in a nutshell. There was one of the questions that got sent in before on on HELOCs, and how do you determine the difference between the deductible portion and the non-deductible? I'll give you an example. What my wife and I have set up is, with our bank, we have one line of credit with 2 tranches, 2 sub-accounts. All the repayments go to the non-deductible part. All the business debt doesn't get touched. We just pay the interest. So now that the non-deductible part is paid off, it's fully deductible. If you don't have this, it's harder to trace where the repayments went to. HST rebates. I'm not an HST expert. We have somebody, Scott, in my office. He does HST all the time. I can spell HST, and then after that I give you to Scott. I'm dead serious. I won't touch these. Make sure you are getting the right HST rebate. If you have a substantial renovation, a gut greater than 90% renovated, you may have to pay HST on that property. If it's a rental, you may have to pay HST. If it's an assignment that was supposed to be a long-term hold, right? You go in and then the person closes it and it's a rental, they might not get the HST rebate. There's a whole bunch of things that come into play here. Make sure you are understanding the HST. The HST on a $100 sweater, who cares? The HST on $1 million unit, that's a big mistake to get it wrong. If you have HST rebates, you will get audited. Virtually 100% of the time you will get audited. This is what we do. We help you create, grow, and maintain wealth. Let's get through this. Develop relationships. Do not go advisor shopping. Oh, somebody told me I can do this. I'm going to use that. No, build relationships. That's huge. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
The first one's around insurance.
Okay.
Besides property insurance, obviously to protect your property, and I guess insurance for estate. Is there any other role for insurance in real estate investing?
Absolutely. I'll give it more than just real estate investing. Insurance could be there as a legacy. You want to leave X amount of dollars to the Cancer Society, to your church, to whomever there. You want to make sure your children aren't burdened with that capital gains tax.
Is that the whole life insurance?
I'm not an insurance expert.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It can be a whole life policy. It can be a term policy.
Oh, okay.
Definitely go to your insurance.
Okay.
I will. Okay. I can tell you the tax consequences. I can work with them, but let them make the recommendation on what makes sense. What we do with a lot of clients is probably on a 5-year basis. We'll sit down with them and figure out the capital gain. And is it time now to buy more insurance, especially if you're younger, because that's when the insurance is much cheaper. If you're going to do it when you're 70, you're going to pay through the nose.
Got it. The second part of the question is on U.S. investing.
Yeah.
I got some advice previously that stay away from it because the reporting requirements are very cumbersome, especially if you're buying like piecemeal, like here and there. Is that a myth or is that true?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
You got to follow no tax return. You just do. It's a separate. You got to pay your U.S. tax. You pay your U.S. tax first. Canada will give you a foreign tax credit. So is it cumbersome? Not really, but people know what they're doing.
All right. And does that impact your financing ability?
I talked to your mortgage broker on that one.
Okay.
That's a depending on the lending institution.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Just to see. One plug I'm going to say, because we found this out recently, 100% of our work is done in Canada. There are competitors out there who don't send their work offshore. The only time we will do work offshore is if I'm on holidays. That's it. The rest of the time it will be done in Canada. Disclaimer, my lawyer always says I have to have this in there. This is general advice. Do not take it. Go seek professional advice. And we're done. Thank you very much. I'll open the floor to any any questions, or if anyone has specifics, feel free. I know we have a list. Go ahead, Mike.
So how do you demonstrate to CRA you're in a co-venture relationship and not a partnership relationship?
The thing will say co-venture agreement.
Okay. What if like the language on like the paper is kind of fuzzy?
Yeah, don't make it fuzzy.
Okay.
Plain simple. Like never say partnership.
Okay.
Like don't put it in there.
Yeah.
Strike those out. You are in co-venture. Plain simple.
Okay.
When you sell a property under a corporation,
yep.
Related with the exit strategy. First of all, the dividends, they don't care. Like CRA don't care about dividends from the past. It has no effect. And the second question is, can you give a basic, like a simple example? Let's say you're accumulating a few losses from previous years. Let me give a basic example of what happens. Like you sold for 1 million, you bought for 500K. You have 100K losses, so 400, half of that?
Effectively, you're dead right. You're paying tax on 400. Capital losses, so losses if you've had stocks that went bad, if you bought RIM shares that went bad. Oh shit. Yeah. Those can be carried forward indefinitely, whether it's personal or corporate. Indefinitely. So it can only be claimed against capital gains. So in your example, if you have that $100,000 capital loss carried forward inside the corporation, you will only be paying tax on that $400,000. That said, half of it's tax free. Okay, because it is a capital gain. That tax free portion, so that the $200,000 will get paid out to the shareholders as what they call a capital dividend. Not a regular dividend, a capital dividend. Capital dividends are tax-free, they're beautiful. And then you pay your corporate tax, and then you pay your personal tax, works out about the same.
Then you close the corporation.
Yep. Yep.
Can you expand on the principal residence being greater than 50%? What about the people who rent out the top of their house and live in the basement because that's all they can, afford financially, but they don't have any other house? How can you say that they don't have a principal residence?
That's what CRA does. I hate saying that. I don't want to be flippant, but it needs to be. Let's not kid ourselves. If you live in the basement and it's just strictly a duplex, I make the argument it's 50-50, move on. Like it should be based on square footage. CRA tends not to really pay attention to those. It's the triplexes or greater that they really will come down on. And other thing, if you have principal residence, you're renting out half, never take CCA. The moment you lost your principal residence, everything's taxable. Everything is taxable.
To get the 13.5%, I understand you have to, again, sort of like a nebulous area to show that it's active income versus passive.
It's not nebulous at all, actually. It's what the type of income is. So if it's a short-term rental, okay? Other people do Airbnbs here.
Yeah.
Short-term rental.
Yeah.
It's active.
Perfect.
The other problem with Airbnbs, and I had a client just come to me recently, if you make over $30,000 on your Airbnb and he had like 15 Airbnbs,
yeah.
That's the HST. He had a red check of $200,000. So make sure you get that one right. So there's no nebulous. In that case, short-term rentals.
What if it's under the umbrella? Let's say you got a corporation, you got a long-term rental in there. You also do management on the side and contract.
Okay.
Can you dump that whole thing into a 34%?
No. You have to split it. What we do, we recommend, is you actually have two corporations for that. Okay. And the reason for that is CRA will tend to argue that the expenses are mainly towards the low taxes, and your income is going to be higher on your passive income. If they're separate, there's no argument. But no, if you have active income and passive in the corporation, it doesn't automatically make it active.
Are short-term rentals active income as well, as in like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months that aren't Airbnb but are done?
It has to be under 30-day rentals.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Peter.
Yeah.
I want to pick your brain on this question. It's been bugging me for a long time, actually.
Okay.
So, in all our acquisitions, we try to, of course, leverage other people's money, like the bank, right?
Absolutely.
So, if effectively we're kind of 100% leverage because the down payment borrowed through the HELOC. And then of course we get the mortgage and refi and all that kind of stuff. So over time, I mean, you accumulate a number of properties. And you're highly leveraged. Right. What are some of your tips to kind of say, oh, you know, you're over leveraged after a certain point, and you should kind of hold off, or should you continue, you know, down this path?
There are two trains of thought. There is a train of thought, and I'm a firm believer at a point in time that you start paying down your debt. I have a few properties that are 100% paid off. I'm not touching them. I'm not refinancing them. I know I could make more, but they're my nest egg. Everything else fails. I got those ones. I can retire on those ones. Great, fantastic. There's a second train of thought that says you refinance every time and all the time. Until there's, if you here actually, I'll say similar terms. If you think you can take the money, and say you're paying 4% interest, and earn more than 4%, refinance every time. Because all we're talking, it's a math game here. If you think you can make more money than the interest that you're paying, refinance. If you don't, pay it down.
Peter, how do you charge if I want to run my personal situation by you?
So for tax planning, we're just an hourly rate, and we're $500 an hour.
This was actually one of the cases that was brought up, I think it was before, where there was a significant difference in spousal income. One spouse said really big, one spouse said really small. In a scenario like that, from tax perspective, does it make sense to have a legal ownership of investment property in the name of the spouse with more income? Does it make a difference?
Again, as I was saying before, legal ownership and beneficial should be different. They may attribute the income back to the spouse who has a higher income, especially if the other spouse has never worked.
What if the other spouse has worked and has totally retired in the last couple of years?
Sure, you can. If it's in a retirement situation, yes, it may make sense. There's no question of that. Remember though, what happens if they decide to go back to work? What happens if the other person isn't working and now all the income on a sale is now going to be on the one person? There's no flexibility.
Oh, I'm talking about rental income, the sale income. So when
but again, you have to look at the entire deal.
So when you're filing for income tax, so the rent income that you get on the property that is in the name of a spouse or income, does that count as the income of that spouse, or is it shared between the two spouses? That's what I'm saying.
It depends on where the down payment came from. Ultimately, most people will just file it under the lower income spouse. CRA may have the ability to go back and say, no, we're attributing it to the higher income spouse.
So you had a point about the short-term rental being considered active income. And so if we're looking at a personal property where you have a short-term rental, aka active income, is there any way of splitting that income from your personal income consideration and have that as corporate?
Are we talking a principal resident?
Yeah, principal resident.
No. Any other?
We'll take one more question and we'll start wrapping up.
What are some good resources you would recommend to learn more about this before coming to you?
Our blogs. Actually, to end it, I'm actually going to share a real estate story. Bought a property in Alberta. Closed the last week in September, first week in October. So it closes the Friday. Saturday, I get a text from my co-venturer there who's managing the property for us. Guys, we made the paper. Literally 48 hours after closing, we had a drug bust. Part of life. I will say I love Alberta because we were able to kick the guy out, sell his stuff, and we fixed the property up. We effectively doubled the rent a month later. It was fantastic. That was a win-win. I've had the scenarios. I would say this is truly one of our greatest advantages, George and I, is we do this. We are just like you. We do this all the time. We can share the same horror stories. All right.
May I ask, where you own the apartment buildings in Ontario or in the city?
I have one in Alberta, one property. Most of mine are in the Hamilton area. Yeah. Got a few right near the original Tim Hortons. Yep.
No good timing there.
On Ottawa Street there?
Know it. You know it. Yeah, I've got a few in there.
I have Hamilton too.
There you go. There you go. Cool. Thanks, Peter. My pleasure.
Thanks again.
Give me a power. Thank you. Now I need the water.
So actually, I love all the advice and stuff. I didn't want to overlay some personal experience as well as client experience. So absolutely, there's no doubt that there's advantages. There can be difficulties on the financing side.
Absolutely.
So I want to just touch base on what that might look like. So and it's funny when you have Peter, Dave Gonzalez, and Shale Rothman up on stage. You always get three different right? One accountant, one mortgage broker, and one lawyer. You have differing opinions from three different experts that come from different fields, right? So at the end of the day, you are going to need to choose what works for you. Many of my holdings are in corporations. Some where legal title is in the corporation name, mortgage is in the corporation name, and then I have other holdings where my personal name is down on title, but my mortgage is my personal name, but then I transfer beneficial ownership over to the corporation, for example, right? So trying to get financing in a corporation, I'm gonna be the mouthpiece for Dave Gonzalez right now, can be challenging, right? So you mentioned a 0.25%. I've heard Dave consistently says it's about 1%. 1% higher for mortgages in a corporation. For many of us who are investing in Toronto, smaller, as Mira was mentioning, smaller triplex, duplex, triplex, fourplexes, when you're into bigger, 6, 8, 10, and above, no doubt it's always going to be in a corporation. In fact, you won't even get a mortgage unless the property is held within a corporation.
Yeah, the bank will tell you to put it.
The bank will tell you, yeah, no doubt. For where we are, we're sort of in this kind of gray spot. Right? Yeah. So trying to get a mortgage, if you put the corporation down on title, who's down on title has to be down on mortgage. Trying to get a residential mortgage for a residential property that's held by a corporation can be difficult.
Yep.
When you're talking about like only two duplexes and triplexes. One way around that I've used in the past, is where we transfer. So we're talking about legal ownership right now. Legal ownership, I'm down on title. Right? I'm down on title, I'm down on mortgage. I transfer beneficial ownership, and Peter touched on this. I transfer beneficial ownership over my corporation, meaning that that's the one that files the tax returns and has its own bank account and everything else. However, I'm down on mortgage. So this concept of infallibility for the corporation, that idea, that veil that we have, the impression that we have of that protection is actually pierced. Because I'm actually down on title. I'm actually down on mortgage. So you lose a little bit of that advantage.
What I will say to that, if you're going to use the corporation, most likely they're going to ask for your personal guarantee anyways. Yeah. So you're going to be out for that.
And that was the second thing I was going to mention. So where I actually have my corporation on title, my corporation on title, my corporation on mortgage, I've had to provide a personal guarantee on that mortgage. Again, there's a train of thought that veil of invincibility is then pierced because I had to provide that personal guarantee. And perhaps there's this argument to be made, if someone's going to sue, they're going to sue everyone and everything, right? And they're going to also sue, and it may mean that corporation is not only a sole entity unto itself. I mean, there's different trains of thought. The other thing, so I'm just going to leave it at that. The other thing is Shale Rothman, who we use, Rain resident lawyer. His rule of thumb is no more than $2 million of real estate within a corporation. It's a rough rule of thumb. You know, again, for Shale, for Peter, it's easy. Even if they bought a $500,000 property, they'll just throw that into a corporation. It's easy for them. For us, you know, $2 million, is that a strict rule? No, it's a guideline. Basically, the idea is how much are you, like Peter said, how much are you willing to lose? If something were to happen, everything in that corporation, you know, you sue, you got to give away everything in that corporation. How much are you willing? So $2 million is kind of a rough rule of thumb. So
is that equity or market value?
Property value.
Property value.
Matt, can I ask you?
Yeah.
So if you transfer the beneficial to the corporation, so is the liability in case this tenant had slipped and fall? Will he or she able to sue you to like get
realistically they're going to sue everybody. Who they actually can go after is going to be dependent upon kind of the situation.
In your case, like if you transfer the beneficiary to your corporation.
The reality is I'm not using corporations for the purposes of protection. I'm using it for other reasons because I realize that it may not be infallible.
For purposes of protection, it's covered by insurance. So slip and fall, any tenant injury should be covered by your insurance policy.
Just like Peter said, like the medical student, like she sued for $6 million and the insurance is only cover $4 million. So you have to declare.
You can get larger umbrella policies that cover.
I think what it basically comes down to is talk to your lawyer, talk to your insurance broker, talk to everybody. Make sure you get the right advice for your situation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the last one I wanted to mention was you talked about intent. You know, earlier you'd mentioned assignments. Oh yeah, definitely going to be active business income. But is there not an argument to be made if we had a client who buyer went to go buy
that's you
right? Yeah. So the thing that they buy it, the intention is for it to be long-term hold. Some change of circumstance. You go to assign.
Yeah, you're right. What I will say to that is majority of the assignments that we see come through are people who plan to assign.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I want to ask you, actually, I think Nir asked this in a roundabout way, but what are some specific things that I can do to try to prove, maybe it's stuff I can do up front. Maybe it's email threads or conversations with my accountant, with my realtor,
Absolutely.
with my lawyer, talking about the intent for this property.
I have a client who sends me an email every time they purchase a property and says, this is my intent for this property.
So it's documented.
Absolutely.
You can refer back to it, and now you have at least some case if the CRA were to come back to you.
Yep.
Right? Absolutely. So tons more to talk about. I think Peter's going to stick around for the next half hour. So come. He's not going to be here.
He has to drive back to Kitchener.
He's got to drive back to Kitchener.
Tell him half an hour past when he's supposed to.
Okay,
I'll stay around for 2 minutes.
Okay, he's already past his bedtime.
I'm old, my friend. I'm old.
Really quickly, Nate?
We offer complimentary advisory. So you sit down with me or Ed or whoever's on our advisory team, 60 minutes. Build out a plan for you guys. A lot about what we talked here today is conceptual. It really matters like what's your personal situation. So please write your name on the whiteboard if you're interested, and we'll get in touch with you.
Next, if for the rest of the next month we're trying to get a executive fully furnished rental agency in there to speak about that as a rental strategy. That is one of the ways that we can turn cash flow negative real estate into cash flow positive real estate using the rental strategy to bolster your acquisition strategy. So that said, we have no plans for the rest of the year. We got someone for November, May. I think it's Tales from the Trenches. A really crappy experience for this guy, but he came up the other side and stronger for it. For the rest of the year, we don't have any other plans. If you want to learn about something, you need to tell me. We don't do this for us, we do this for you. We already have our real estate portfolios. We do this to help. Okay? So let us know what you want to know about. Yeah, you already, what?
Tour? Okay, so does someone would you be interested in doing a street smart tour or doing a walkthrough of a mid-renovation property? Yes. Or finished renovation property? Okay, so we'll line that up in one of the months as well. Okay, anything else? Yeah, well, who can do it? We think you can do it. We think you can do it. This guy, this eraser. Okay, so thank you.